Hi everyone, hopefully you can hear me. Uh, Welcome to the second of our demos. My name's Tom Brooks. I'm a system designer in Newcastle working on this project. Last demonstration was given to you by Matt Page, who's our product owner and a service manager. He's unfortunately unavailable today, but will be listening in to the recording that we're going to be taking of this session when he gets a chance. Can I first of all just ask that anyone who wants to ask any questions can do via the chat facility. If you could please send it to everyone so people can see the questions coming through. We're trying to reduce duplication that way, and it just means that everyone has sight of that. If you have any technical issues with audio or such like, if you could just send a chat message to Samantha Archard, who is our marketing associate. She's down in Guildford at the moment, and she can try and help you via the chat console. 2 or 3 weeks since your last demo. It's been a significant amount of work carried out in that time. Some things have changed, some things may not have changed. I will try and describe those as we go through. There are still some features to implement and to finish off, but I will try and give you as much of an overview of where we're at the moment as we go along. So to start with, we have the landing page. So as you can see here, it's this is one of the things that has not changed yet. We will have the news feed at the top right. So this will be taken from social media. There's just a background to the site as well, just welcoming you to the site. This particular page is open access, so you do not need to be subscribed to the service at all to gain access, as is the case for the Discover page, which is the next one I'll show you. What we have here is basically a list of all of the catalogs that you can subscribe to. This is open access, so you can see access to this even if you're not authenticated or not yet subscribed to the service. The example you were shown in the previous demonstration was basically using kind of a lot of pre-configured hard-coded data. This data that we currently have in now is all being fed from the back-end system, so we are far closer to where we finally intend to be next week and onwards. There are some descriptive text fields, and we want to have thumbnails for each of these data sets that are still to be added to the service. And as you can see, there is not the ability at the moment to actually select any of these layers or to order and download these layers. This is because we are currently guest user. We've just come across a site and we are a guest user. To change that, we've got the account, we've got the login option, or if we selected the map from here, then we would be redirected to the Shibboleth authentication, and this is where for subscribed organizations you can actually go to your local organization and you can log in. At the moment this is just a test instance, so we're using the UK Federation test IDP. So if I typed in test, I can then select UK Federation test IDP just to show you this using one of the test accounts that is currently set up in there. And this will redirect us back to our site, and I'm now in an authenticated state. So if I went up to the top right, you'd see it's now the option to log out because I'm currently logged in, and I'll be able to access the map. However, if I go back to the Discover page, if I went to those same layers as I just showed you earlier, I now have the ability to select those layers, and I also have the ability for certain layers, although not any of these ones here, there we go, to actually add that layer to the basket in its entirety. So because I'm authenticated on the system, I do have the capability of doing that, and because I'm subscribed to those catalogs. For any catalog I was not subscribed to, again I would be able to see the metadata for that particular layer, but I would not be able to view the layer on the map or add it to my basket. So this is where the authorization levels come into the system. In order to subscribe, if you go through your account manager, and Jisc will be able to help you through that. If you've got any questions regarding that, if you can add those to the chat at the bottom right, and I think we have colleagues on from Jisc who can hopefully help us with those questions as well. You'll see wherever you are on site, you've always got this global header, so you'll always be able to find your way around. We also taken into account the mobile usage, so what I could actually do now, I can also emulate the mobile view for this particular site. So you can see it gives you the ability to maximize your view. So currently I'm on a Galaxy S5 display here. We hide the menu on the left and we actually give it a hamburger menu, so we can actually go into the Ordnance Survey, close that, and then we can go and look through those. So we're trying to cater for many different form factors here. As we go through the site, I'll show you occasionally just the mobile view, just so you can see how that would look. But for the majority of the demo, we will just be looking at the full desktop view, accessed through a browser. Now that we are logged in, next step, we shall have a look at the map, which is, this is a view and download service. Most of the interactions with this service will be performed from the map view. The Discover does give you the ability to view some metadata regarding some layers, and it will also allow you to add those layers to the map directly or to add them to the basket directly. But you can also do all of those actions from within the map. You'll notice also we've got the resources in the middle. This is not yet implemented, but this will be the ability to view technical data guides, so for all of the data that is in there. It will also have some external user guides, so links to, for example, Ordnance Survey data sets and data guides. It will also have service user guides, detailed help content and such like. And one of the most important things for the community will be some case studies. And if anyone has any case studies they are willing to share with us from their use of this data, then this is the sort of thing that will go up onto this particular section. The resources section again will be open access, so you do not need to be subscribed to the service or authenticated in order to access that data. So this is trying to promote sharing and the openness of data and experience with that data. So moving on to the map page. Default view at the moment is just we've got OpenStreetMap we're using here. We're still loading some of the data sets in. If you open up this hamburger menu on the left, top left of the screen, this is going into the by default you go into the catalog, which is the same data sets that are in the Discover. From here we can go in and we can select sections of that. Version I'm currently showing you is actually just to show you the authentication. What I'm now going to do, because this is a slightly outdated version, I'm actually going to go across to our current test version, because this has the updated symbols and display of that. So as you can see from this, we have the we've got the icons to denote the different categories we have. So the current categories we have loaded into the system are the geology layers, the Ordnance Survey layers, marine layers and aerial photography. There are other layers that will be coming to you as well for any subscribers. So they will be the geological, we've got historic data sets in there as well, and also environment data. The environment data will include Centre for Ecology and Hydrology and the open LiDAR data. The OS data, although it's not in there as we speak, will include the Northern Ireland data, so that is coming as part of the package now. And there is also room for expansion in the future, so any further licenses that are put in place in the future will be available within here. Data is subscribed to on a catalog basis, so each of these categories will be one of the data sets that can be subscribed to. It's not a subset of those particular categories. And we've got standard zoom in by double clicking, we've got zoom in and out by the zoom controls at the bottom right. The button at the very bottom right is the layer manager, which I'll come on to in a minute. On the left hand side, so you've got your categories. This is all accessed via the hamburger menu. So you've got the catalogue, we have some map tools, and we have projects. So I shall come onto those in due course. The aim of this map view is to try and maximise the map space available. The work that will be done by yourselves will be focused around the map and the map view. So when you are working your way around the system, we want to be able to try and give you as much map as possible to play with. So everything else will hide around that until you actually need those particular tools. Click on the bottom right to get Layer Manager. Again, that's a panel on the right hand side, but that can be minimized. There's also a search capability at the top right, which, when there's no search required, can again be minimized. So at the moment we have our base map, which is currently OpenStreetMap. There will be various other base maps available. These are currently being configured, but they will be based upon the Ordnance Survey data sets. So we could actually go in there and select one of the Ordnance Survey data sets. You can see as you drill down into this, we have the notion now of groups. So there are many layers of group potentially. So we're within the Ordnance Survey category. Within there we've got two different groups. We've got the academic license data and the open government license data. So we can drill down into each of these. There are no further groups as we speak, but for other layers such as marine, there are various layers available, various groupings. So as we drill down into the marine, you can see that the coloration of that and the styling of that control just gets lighter as you go down through the group, so it's easy to then navigate and work out when you're at the bottom layer. Whenever you're at the bottom of a particular layer tree, it will always be white. So let's try and clarify that. When you expand that by pressing the I at the top right of that, you will have some metadata available. At the moment that's just very minimal, but there'll be some text metadata there. You also have two options. One is to view the extents of that given layer, and the second is to add that layer to the basket to download that layer in its entirety. Not all layers will be available to download in their entirety, and that will be denoted by the availability of that particular icon against that layer or not. So to select a given layer, so if I, for example, wanted to select my vector map local backdrop, you just click on that toggle button. So I probably zoomed out a little bit too far for that to really be a usable layer, but as we zoom in, you can see that come into its own a bit more. All of this data is driven by a database, so as new layers become available and come online, they will be pulled into the front end as you access the service. So now that that's added to the map, if we go into our layer control, you can see that my OS vector map local backdrop raster, which is a nice snappy title, that's now available in that layer. We can actually drag layers within here, so I could actually go in and add another layer. So if I wanted to go in, for example, and add an aerial photography layer, we actually have individual flown by years in here, or we've actually got a collated one, which is the most recent data available for any given area. So again, we've got, this is probably most useful as a backdrop, but I'll just show you how these can be configured within the layer manager. So we've got the three layers in there at the moment. We can actually drag the Z order of those layers, so you can then change the which one is on top. We could then change the opacity, so you actually get bleed through of those layers. Just changed the wrong one there, sorry. So you can see the bleed through from that OS layer. We have the ability to actually compare side by side those layers. So you can see as I zoom into one or the other of those, it will zoom in, and the view of those layers will be the same in both. Only one will be in comparison mode, so if I go back into my layer control there, you can see which layer it is. It's in the comparison view. So at the moment it's my my backdrop, and within my other view I've got the ability to change the opacity because I have multiple layers within there. So I've got my base layer and I've got my aerial photography layer. In order to exit the comparison view, we can either exit from the layer manager, or there's the ability to exit from the top here. It's interesting at this point to just show you that within the mobile view. So again, we do have the ability to do map comparison in mobile. So if I go into that layer manager, and this time I'll choose my aerial photography, you'll notice because it's in portrait, we are actually putting top and bottom comparison rather than side by side. If you rotated that view, then that would obviously go side by side as well. Copyright messages are specific to the particular view there. So you see the top copyright is actually the showing all three. The bottom one's just showing the aerial photography. So if I exit from there, again we'll go back to the standard view, and we'll remove that backdrop for now. Show extent will likely just zoom me back out to the UK because that is a full extent data set. There are some data sets in here that will be, especially for some of the historic data, will be specific to a town or local area. So that will zoom you to the extent of that particular data set. So you can see what the potential order area is for that. You could do the same from within the catalogue as well. Before you've actually added it to the map, you've got the ability to drill down into there, and if I zoomed in a bit, again you can click on that extent and that will zoom out to the full extent of that particular data set. Right, I think that's the basic functionality of the system in terms of the view. What I'd like to do now is go through a scenario with you, just show how this might be used in the real world. So what we're going to do is, I know last time Matt showed you Buckingham Palace, so I may as well show you somewhere a bit different. So what we'll do is search first of all, so any 1RQ. As you might tell, with me being up in Newcastle, I'm choosing something local to me. Do a search, so that will quickly zoom me into the search results. There are 5 addresses found, and these are all in and around the castle in Newcastle, from whence it gets its name. So if I click on if I mouse over, I don't know if you can see that. As you mouse over each of these, it will give you a tooltip for the full text of that search result. And on the map, it will actually show you which of the markers it was that was actually selected. So the top one is the Castle Keep. You can see that just below the rail line. Second one's a hotel, and that's just at the bottom right. The third one is the Black Gate, which sounds ominous. And I'm actually going to click on that, and that will just zoom out, just to show that that area. Once I've selected that. So I can just minimize my search results there, but they can stay on the map. What we can now do as well, just to give us a bit more information for this local area. First of all, you can see there's a kind of grassy area around there. What we may do is maybe interested in actually using some map tools to just to draw a freehand polygon around that, which can help us just to view this when we're doing further analysis on the area. And then we can give that that particular area name. And if I just enter on that, then that changes that. We can go in and we can change the styling of this, so we can change the opacity. Keen-eyed amongst you might notice we've changed the terminology of this. I think previously it was polygon transparency, but it's actually counterintuitive when you're actually changing the slider. So now it's opacity, so we can go from fully opaque to fully transparent, and somewhere back in the middle. We can change the colour of that, so I'll pick a yellow, and we can also change the border, so the border width of that, from minimal to quite large. If we zoomed out a little and wanted to go back to that particular area, if you click on that, you'll notice there's this button just to zoom to the extent area. And that just takes you back in. So if you're dealing with multi-polygons and want to zoom out and rezoom into another one quickly, that's easily done. We can also add points. So down here we might actually want to add a point, so that was the relevant to the castle. You can actually then change the style of that given point as well. So I think that was the gatehouse, if I remember rightly. Oh no, it wasn't, sorry, I think it was a keep. So we can change the style of that, and you can notice there's a few pre-canned styles here. As it's a historic site, I'll change the style to that, and we can change the colour. Another new feature that we've added in is the ability to add external layers. As you'll notice, with this dealing with the castle and us being quite close to the railway station and the rail lines, I'm going to show you a few external layers here. So at the top of the layer manager, we've got the add layer. In here we have the ability to add layer. I'm going to add one called rail noise, and if I go to, I don't know if you've seen this site before, but it's a data.gov.uk site for open data. If I went to one of the diff data sets, there's a rail noise overlay here, and if I select the WMS feed for that, I can copy that particular URL, and I can then include that within here. So if I select a layer of type WMS, and I can add that layer. If I then select off that, we'll actually get a list of the layers that are currently available within there, and because I've just selected the rail noise layer, that's the one layer that's available. If I add that, you should see that then appear within my layer on the right hand side. So it's a rail noise layer, and you can see that data being displayed and pulled in from an external source. So as long as my browser has access to that source, I should have visibility of that. You will have noticed when I added that layer there was the ability to add authentication, so that's basic authentication, but that will only be added for your local session. You'd need to add that each time. We can't persist those user credentials, unfortunately, as it would just be bad at security practice. So as you can see, there's not a significant amount of rail noise in the area of the castle. Another layer that we could actually add is, if I go back to my spatial catalogue, and from Historic England we've got the ability to add World Heritage Sites. This URL is actually compound, so because I've already added one, it will actually still have the other one as well. So I'm going to actually show Historic Sites in there, which is a WMS layer. If I needed authentication, I would click that checkbox and ask you for your username and password. However, this one doesn't require that. So now within there I've got two layers I can select from, and this time I'm going to select the World Heritage Sites, and I'm going to add that layer. So you can see Historic Sites come up in there. You can see the historic sites going all the way up Westgate Road for those of you who know Newcastle, and we've got the area around the castle is is highlighted on there as well. So you can see the castle itself. If I just reduce the opacity of that particular layer, it does have some areas that are impacted by rail noise, which may be a problem for those looking at the historic nature of that site. There are some other drawing tools available, so you've got the ability to draw circles, lines, and rectangles. You can then amend those. So if I had a circle around the castle, it's getting a bit cluttered at the moment, I'll remove some of these later. So one click to start that circle and one click to finish. You can actually go back in and amend that circle, and you can actually select the center point and you can drag that circle around as well. Again, with polygons, we've already drawn one polygon, but you can actually edit the edge of those polygons and you can move those accordingly. There's a clear all section to clear everything on the annotation side. And then moving into the other tools, we have order area tools. So in here we've got the ability to just select an area for order, very similar to the drawing tools, because you can actually select one of these drawn areas and you can actually add that area to the basket. I'll actually show you that in a minute, but if I just zoom out a little bit, it's getting a little bit cluttered around there. So we can actually select a predefined order size. So if I wanted a 1 kilometer square, I'll be able to drop that on the map. This is currently in development. We could order a polygon area or a rectangle. So for that rectangle, I'd draw that and then I would select add to basket. I can then add my aerial photography to basket either by dragging that layer left or right, or you can do this to select all or remove all if you've got multiple layers. Once it's in the basket, you'll notice the top right there's an icon in there that denotes how many items you have in the basket. I could actually add a secondary area to that basket even with the same layer. So again, I could do that same layer, add that to the basket, and there's now 2 items in that basket. So if I now go to that basket, you can see the 2 areas we have. You can then would be able to, it's not yet implemented, but this ability to zoom the extent of that given layer, so you could see, otherwise as you can see it might be confusing that you've got 2 aerial areas in there, so that's why we have the extents view on there. You could also remove it from the basket, and you can also select the download format. So there are several raster formats or some not for this given layer, but there would be some vector formats as well, such as shape files and such like. We can then submit that basket, and for here you would have to accept the license agreement for any items in that basket. This is currently just in test. This is just some test data we have available. We're not pulling this from the actual data sets in that basket. But as you can see, you would need to accept the license terms for any data that you have in that basket. If you have multiple items with the same license agreement, you don't need to select that once. So even though I have 2 aerial items in the basket, I would only need to actually accept the terms and conditions for that once. Once I have accepted all of those, I would then be able to place my order. And that will go away and place that and empty my basket. You then access your orders from the account section. So you've got my orders at the top right, and if you click on my orders, you then get an order as placed. This is not the order as was just placed then. This is not currently linked up. This is still in development and will be done extremely shortly. So as you can see, there's the order information, the area that you downloaded, the format you downloaded it in, and a link to download that. For any layers, so large orders that are in production, when you expand that order, the icon at the top right will basically denote that it's currently not available or not yet available. You will still be able to expand and see the details and metadata for that, but you won't be able to download. The fact this has got a green download icon on it, I know I can then go away and download that file. As you can see, that's zipped up and in my browser at the bottom right. I'm only showing the one application, so as I opened that would just open up a zip with the content in there. It will, within that zip package, will be the end user license agreements that you've agreed to, so you have a copy of those to go alongside your data. For any layers that you have available, we currently don't have this in here at the moment, but there will be the ability to share those layers as a WMS, WMTS or WOS feed, so you'll be able to load those into an external GIS. I think that brings us to the end of the demonstration. I'm more than happy to take any questions that you have. So looking down in chat, can I just say if anyone wants to join in with this Q&A session, if you use the chat section on the WebEx, and if you send that to all, to everyone, sorry, rather than to all, and I shall work my way through those. So the first question is from Jackie King, and it says, can you see the key to the layers? How loud is the red bit? So the key, as in the legend, are you talking about here? There is a legend control. This is currently in development. So at the bottom left of the screen, we have a button there which would take us into the legend. We are not currently feeding through the legend data, so there's no population of that. And the button that's currently there will move to the bottom right, so it's alongside the layer manager. But yes, any layers that have layer information in there will be shown in there. So some, obviously, the aerial photography will not need any legend info, but others, such as you say, the things like the rail noise, if we had it internally hosted, would show that. As it's an externally hosted data set, that layer information is not being supplied. We're using OGC standards, and as it's not part of that data set, unfortunately, that's not being displayed. So we are, for external feeds, reliant on the data that's available to us. Are there any other questions from anybody? If you do have any questions offline about any of this, then if you send them through, Samantha, I don't know if you're able to give any update on that, whether it's best to send them to Jisc or to ourselves.
Yeah, so all questions can go through to Jisc on the standard email address that everybody has access to.
Thank you. Jane's just asked if we could just have started to build a map. I could certainly show the map. I don't know if all of you had a problem just at the point of the map. So what I'll do is I'll do the search that we had in. So that was a search for the castle. So within there we had the castle and the black gates. Used the map tools to define an area around there. And then we could change the styling of that and the opacity. What we then did was quickly added an external layer. So for this it was a rail noise layer, it was WMS layer, and from there I was able to then add the rail noise. Similarly, within that layer I had the historic sites, WMS layer, and this is the World Heritage Sites. So these were then added as overlays to the map, which when you change or add in an aerial layer as well, gives quite a lot of context to that area on which we are looking. So then we've got the ability to change the opacity of any of those layers and the Z order of any of those layers. And for any given area, we can then go in and add that area to the map. If you had multiple layers available, so for example, if I added one of the geology layers, these are not yet styled, so please pay little attention to the actual data that's in here, but you can see there is an overlay loading in there. If I minimize that, then try to order that black gate area, you should see the two areas. Saying order area is too large, that's not yet configured, but you should be able to add that as well. You'll be able to add both layers to that map. And then that's in the basket. So that's just a whistle-stop tour. I don't want to bore everyone with going over everything twice, but hopefully that's sufficient. Just going back to the chat, quickly going off the top. There's Liz is saying, apologies if I missed audio, but will any support training materials be available for libraries or learning resources to staff for promoting? Yes, the resources section at the top middle will include many resources for that. So there'll be resources for using the system, so there'll be tutorials and such like. There'll be technical data guides to say what each of the data sets includes, and the licenses that go with that as well. The external user guides for those data sets. The service user guides, which is probably what will be most interest of you for this, which should be detailed help content and some tutorials, and then say the case studies, which should be community driven. Next question from Dorothy. Will the Dudley stamp land cover maps be included in the catalogue? I think that's a question for Jisc. I'm not entirely sure exactly which datasets will be included. There's a note from David. Can you let me know when the system is going live? There will be a pre-release as of next Wednesday, so anyone who's subscribed to the system will have access to it from that date. It will be being updated and changes being made up until the 1st of August, which I think is the official go live for this. But you will get a pre-release version as of next Wednesday that will be being worked upon, and you will get regular updates to that as features are released. But you'll get a chance to familiarise yourself with the site, look around, provide feedback and such like. Next question from Michael Norman. I have a college that has asked me regarding the capability of being able to print larger maps. In the first instance, we are looking to print A4 and A3 size maps. If you would like larger than A3, then if you could state specifically what you're looking for. Potentially, I think there is capability of printing up to A0, but in the first instance and for the release in August, we'll be doing up to A3. And there's a note there as well saying we'll be receiving a link for the authentication side of things. For authentication, I think as long as your institution is signed up and has a shibboleth identity provider that's registered with the UK Federation and you are subscribed to the service, then we should be able to authenticate you based upon that. Confirmation there from Craig, just saying 4th of July is the first release date for that, so that's next Wednesday. There will be this initial release going out.
Hi everyone, it's Craig Moran here. Yeah, there's just to answer that question, the links. If you subscribed via the Jisc Collections website and made the order, then as soon as the links become available from Airbus, we will then contact all of the subscribers to give them that link, and then obviously if you're using your SHIB authentication, you'll be able to have access as normal then, as if you would for any other resource that you subscribe to.
Thanks for that, Craig. Okay, in that case I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for your time.
Can I can I just say, actually, sorry, it's Craig again here. I think, Liz, you said that case studies will be useful too. I think, yeah, that's one thing that we are looking into as well, is into the resources section, which is in the middle link between Discover and Map on there. That section is something that is looking to be populated quite heavily as we go through the rest of this process. Obviously, we're quite, at its inception at the moment, but as case studies will be used, we'll be able to add those in there. I think it might also be useful, we think, potentially that you could produce your own case studies on how you would use the data as an institution, because we certainly wouldn't want to tell you or be prescriptive of how you use a service. So we are thinking about one idea is to have case studies done actually by institutions that could be uploaded and potentially put in this section, so they could be used not only by your institution but for the for academic use across our sector, which I think would be quite powerful because we've not been able to do that before. So yes, bottom line is that is something that we really want to go into and develop further.
Thanks for that, Craig. Sorry, there was one feature I didn't actually show you, which was the measure tools. So we now have the ability to measure. That can be included in the printouts or not, depending on how you see fit. So you see you've got area measurement, and we've also got the line measurement there. I also mentioned projects, but we haven't got the user interface to show for that. So a project will basically save everything, as you can see in that map view, including the annotations, measurements, the layer configuration. The only thing that won't be saved is any authentication details for an external feed. But any unauthenticated external feeds, such as the ones we have here for the rail noise and for the historic sites as well, they would be included in that project. You could then share that. It will basically give you a URL that you could email to anybody you wish. And if it's in a shared state, then anyone can load that project in while it's in a shared state. That could be within your organisation or across organisations if you're working collaboratively. There's also a concept of bookmarks, which is going to be accessible from the bottom right, and a bookmark will basically be you can define these yourself, and that will be just a view. So that will be a center point of your map and a zoom level. So you could set a bookmark for an area that you're working on, but that won't reload your layer configuration. That would have to be done through projects. So bookmarks are useful for like a home view if you're always returning to the same place. Projects are more specific to the data and the type of project you're currently working on. There's a question just come in from Eleanor, just saying, will users need to register individually? Registration is done on an institution basis. So as long as your organisation has subscribed to the service, then individual users that are registered with that organisation and use that the same authentication provider, then they will automatically be able to log into this the service without any further registration required. Each user will have to accept individually the site terms and conditions, but you will not need to do any further registration beyond that. Okay, is there anything else from yourself, Craig?
No, unless anyone else has got any questions for Jisc as well as Airbus. Obviously we can take this offline. If there are any questions, you can email me at craig.moran@jisc.ac.uk, or you can always go via our help desk, which I put the address on there earlier in the feed. So yes, you can always take them off.
Okay. Great. Thanks everybody for your time then, and we'll be releasing the service, as I say, next Wednesday, so the 4th of July. So if there's any subscriptions placed before then you'll have access to the site from then.
Can I also say as well, Tom, that if people can subscribe from now, that they can also subscribe until the end of August as well, without being invoiced, or it's kind of like a risk-free trial period, so people can go on the site and start registering. Can I also say that the aerial service, which you're seeing there, which is the aerial photography service, that is in development. Obviously, it's there, but that would actually be a separate subscription, and we'll be putting together a separate subscription page for that, because obviously that involves a very different license. So that will be available, but it will require a separate subscription for that. So just to watch out for that. There will be more, sort of communication on that as we go along.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks everyone for your time.